Okay. Okay, everyone. We will get underway. Okay, Ralph, when Ralph's ready. Actually, I'll say this. This doesn't have to go on the recording, Ralph, but I'll just say this. A number of people have said, could we have the recipes? Okay, so if you want the recipes sent to you, please see Judy down the back. Judy, you'll be taking names for recipes, please. So please see Judy, and Bernice will email them out to you. Okay, so she says easier than printing them off. It's much easier. And then you can have the whole lot at the once. Yeah. Don't forget the what? The biscuits. Oh, yeah.
I kept thinking, oh, are these definitely gluten-free? Yeah, I know. And the soup from yesterday, the lentil soup.
The lentil soup. Oh, look, I'll tell her that. She'd love that. Her specialty is the lentil soup. Yes. Very nice. Yeah. So, yeah, the lentil and celery soup. Oh, yeah, she does that all the time. Her go-to is lentil and celery. This is when I find it very difficult. I say don't drink between meals, but I find that if I wait, I just get so dry as I'm talking between meals, and I thought, don't drink between meals. Or don't drink straight after your meal. Okay, everyone? Okay. Well, this section here has to be probably one of my most favourite sections when I'm sharing with people poultices, natural remedies. And I think of all, as I said, the many classes that I've done, I think people respond to this. They just love the poultices because they're practical ways you can help people. Now, you may have done some of them before, but I want to share with you some of the stories which I've got. And these poultices, you'll find these are all in the book, How to Make Your Poultices. I'm going to do poultices today and again tomorrow. So I'm going to take 2 sessions to do the poultices. But first of all, I'm going to do a potato poultice. Now, probably most of you have done them already or you heard about them. But if you haven't heard about them, I want to talk about the potato poultices. What are they good for? What is a poultice? Actually, we should just back up. What is a poultice? Now, if I would state, does anybody here know what a poultice is? Yes? You mash up your vegetables or any vegetable matter. Let's call it vegetable matter. And you put it on the outside of your body and it causes a reaction, and you're using your skin, and it actually draws out through your skin into a poultice, although not every poultice is drawn into. For instance, a castor oil doesn't draw, it disperses. But like a potato poultice, there'll be an exchange take place. So you're putting it on the outside of your body. So potato poultice is actually just a drawing poultice. So what do you use it for? You use it for anywhere that you've got inflammation or any inflamed tissues, and it draws out the inflammation through your skin. So where do you think, anybody heard any places that they've put, or have you tried poultices on any particular part of your body?
When you put mastitis?
Yes, a very common one is when you put it on there. Mastitis, potato poultices, although probably if I was doing mastitis, my first preference would be cabbage poultice for that one. Probably I would do that one for mastitis, but I would do potato poultices especially for anything inflamed, anything, but you need to be careful. I've done these, there's some stories I could tell you about it. There was a lady who and some of you, because I tell this is my standard story because I just think it's so great. There was this lady, she was in her 80s, and she got a leg ulcer. And if you have a leg ulcer when you're 80, there's a problem. And the problem is usually you can't heal it. It stays for years and years and years and years. You can't get rid of it. Why? Because instead of that toxins getting pushed off through your bowel or through your elimination channels, your toxins are actually, your body is using that opening in your leg to get rid of toxins. So what should be going out through your bowels or elimination is going out through that hole or that wound that you're using, that you've got in your leg. And guess what? It's becoming, and it's your body is actually saving your life because it knows it's got to get rid of toxins. So it's using that ulcer. So the point of it is, you've got a leg ulcer or something like that, number one, you have to cleanse up the blood. That's part of it too. Okay, so this lady, she was put on blood cleansing herbs. She was told to get her elimination channels working. But the thing was, she had this leg ulcer. So a friend of mine went to her, and remember she's in her 80s, and the doctors told her amputation. They could not heal this leg ulcer up. She went to a very, very good naturopath, and the naturopath said, look, I've done everything I can do for you. I don't know what it is. So this lady, a friend of mine, she was a neighbour to this lady, or maybe the lady's daughter, and she went there and she decided to put this potato poultice on a leg ulcer. Okay, so on a leg ulcer, it may be only that large, but she did a poultice that was probably maybe at least that big over the leg ulcer. So you'd make the poultice quite a bit larger than the actual wound. And she put it on there in the night time. She covered it over because potato poultice will weep. So what you need to do is, I've suggested that I've got a garbage bags. I use garbage bags. So I would put the whole, she had it on the leg ulcer, which was just on her shin bone. So she had a big garbage bag over her foot, right up there, and they just got it in place because it will weep everywhere in your bed. You don't want to get a wet bed from your poultice. So you protect your bedding. Okay, so they put the poultice over the area, they bound it up and they got it in place and they covered it with a garbage bag. She said in the morning she went to get she removed the poultice. She said she couldn't even hardly get into the room, it smelt so much. It just stinks. It is so putrid. She said she nearly brought up a breakfast. She said it was so smelly. Okay, so she got rid of that and she changed it and put another one on. And she did this for a few days and then she stopped because when you're doing poultice, you don't do back on. You need to let the skin air out for a while because you just got to look at it and say, no, I think I'll just leave this for a while. So she was doing them mostly overnight, but she put some on during the day, but then she left them go because you can't, as I said, you need to just watch for it because people who do back on poultices, they can actually, it'll pull out so much, it'll just turn the whole area into quite an ulcer. You need to be careful, right? So sometimes you just got to just back off a little bit. So she went and she put another poultice on. They did quite a few poultices, but would you believe it was probably about 3 months later and that leg ulcer was healed. She also did, and she got to the stage she did cabbage poultices. She initially started with potato, but she went to cabbage and she threw things in. She got to the stage she couldn't be bothered to putting them in a rolling pin and that. She just threw them in a vitamizer, in a food processor and whooshed it up. And because they come a bit slushy, so she just put a little bit of maybe charcoal in there or clay in there or Epsom salts in there just to take up that moisture to make it the consistency which would stay in a poultice. So there's no rule that says you cannot mix your poultices together. Sometimes it can be an added advantage. You know, I've heard of people even though this is a poultice that I would use for maybe for drawing, I had a friend, she actually said she got rid of frozen shoulders. She just used potato mixed with cayenne pepper, frozen shoulder. So there's no, as I said, no rule. Mix them if you want to. So what else you do? So that's the leg ulcer, got rid of the leg ulcer. What else does it get rid of? It also can get rid of splinters. You can make it on, put it on a poultice. You just make a little poultice if you've got a splinter, and you don't, especially if the splinter's embedded. Another one too, I've heard of, and I knew this one, and I actually told my cousin, and he used it on testicular cancer. I beg your pardon, I'll say my cousin used it on prostate cancer, but this other person used it on testicular cancer. How do you use it in that place? Like is prostate and testicular would be a similar thing. You would make a poultice and you would put it in and tuck it in behind the man's scrotum, and you'd get him to wear a pair of tight, not tight, but underwear, snug fitting underwear that held it in place. It's the only way you can do it. Sometimes some areas are very hard to get a poultice to stay in place. It's like if you've got something on your shoulder, how do you bandage something on your shoulder? Or there's certain places in our body that it's not easy. So you just got to do the best you can and work out how you can apply this and keep it in place. So that's how you do it. Plus you can also use it for any eye inflammation. Bite? Yes, all bites. Yes, absolutely. Any bite, it wouldn't matter if it's a spider bite. Sometimes you can use other things for it, but that's what I would use. Now, this is excellent for burns too. I was hearing a report of a man, he was burnt, and this was online. It was like he'd been somewhere and he went into a little room and he couldn't find the light switch, so he used a match, and there was a gas leak, and whoosh, he got burnt all over his face. And they thought, whoa, what do we do? Well, there was a whole lot of people there because they must have been ready, and they immediately put potato poultice on his face, and he really eased the pain. You see what happens, because obviously a burn, potato is cooling, and as it cools down, you don't leave it on too long. You sort of just scrape a little bit of it off, reapply it, and then add more. You maybe do it every 10 minutes or so at first, and then keep reapplying it. Then just don't need to get right down to the bottom, but just keep packing it on and keep pulling off, and it will reduce the pain, it will reduce the inflammation, and it brings healing. So that's excellent to know for something like burns. So how do we make it? Well, you can use it. I had one lady, she told me that she decided, she came to my classes and she said, she used to this is before she knew about putting it in a poultice. She just used to make slices, and she'd tie them onto a headband and put them around her head, like slices around there for a migraine she'd had. You've tried that too? Just slices. So there's no rule that says you've got to do it exactly like I'm doing. It's just that I do know that if you put grated potato on your body, it's going to fall everywhere, which I did at the very first thing when I first started learning this. Somebody said, you do grated potato on the chest for a poultice. So I put it on there. And I didn't put it in anything. And guess what happened? Guess what happens? It just goes everywhere. This is something that happens. So I just did learn the hard way. It's easier if you put it together in something. Now, what do I use? You can use a Chuck's. This is a piece of Chuck's Super White. Or you can use any old rag or cloth or sheet or anything, bearing in mind that it needs to be relatively porous. Now, the Chuck's is great because it's got quite porous. But you can you can use anything. And if some people say, but your Chuck's has got chemicals in it. And if it has, just wash a whole lot and get rid of the chemicals and just have it that it's been washed and sterilised or whatever, so you can use it. Okay, so what we're doing is we're just going to use a Chuck's. And what I would do is I'd get my potato, and I just get a grater, any grater. This is an ideal size grater. And I just grate it up, and I've washed this potato. Organic versus inorganic. Organic works better, but inorganic will work just the same. It will work as well. Maybe not quite as strong, but it will work. Oh, that's got a bit of a spot there on it. Okay, I'll go this way and use this side of the potato. How big a parcel depends how big a patch you're going to try to cover. That'll do. So you can see what I'm doing. You've got it on the screen there. So what I'm doing is I've just made a little parcel. I'm just going to fold the outside edges into the middle. Any excess I'm just going to keep on the top side, any excess cloth. So the bottom side that's going onto your skin, there's only one thickness of cloth that's going onto your skin. Now, Donna, you've got a free arm. How about coming up and I'll put it on your arm for you. Okay, so you want to put it anywhere. You just pop it over there like that. And then I use... This is packing tape, or you could use Glad wrap or something, and I just keep it in position by just using, thank you, just using Glad wrap or you can put more on there if you wanted to. You could go up a little bit higher. Now, if she was going to sleep with that overnight in bed, I definitely would put a garbage bag over that, and then I would put a bit of sticky tape over that just to take the slackness out of the bag, and I would put that because it will weep overnight. Now, it won't do too much to you for her now because she's got nothing on there, but if there's a bruising or pulling it out, it will get quite wet. So often I would say, just be aware that it's going to drip. So you have to be aware of that. I should have said, has anybody got a sore knee or a sore elbow or whatever? But anyhow. Okay, so that's it there. So any questions about the potato poultice? Use it on swollen glands, you like here. So I would make a little poultice. So you can make small poultices, you can make bigger poultices. Yeah, you can pull it off now. Donna, I should have just pop it over here in this. You can make small poultices, you can make large poultices, you can put it on there under your glands, or you can bring it up around there. Although the poultice for choice for me, let's say for glandular fever, is carrot poultice. So it's similar. Carrot. You can do that. Carrot, you could use parsnip, you could do any of the root vegetables. They're going to work, right? Carrot poultice works too, yes. I did a carrot poultice on my granddaughter who had glandular fever, and she had glandular fever probably for only maybe 1 or 2 days. And she came out of it because I put the carrots around her neck. One thing I didn't realise, though, I sent her to bed with it, and I gave it to her around her neck, and of course it gets over the pillowcase and the sheets, and guess who washes it? Just remember that. They can make a mess on your sheets if you're going to bed, so you've got to be aware of that. So just know, and you just weigh it up, and you think, because, well, obviously if you're going to... Because you can't really put a plastic bag over the head. You could put it around there, which I thought I did, but it still leaked out. So what I'm saying is you need to be careful because they do leak. They tend to make moisture. They pull moisture out, so you need to be aware of that.
And that's good for the inflammation of the...
Absolutely. Inflammation of eyes too. Yes. A number of people have had sore eyes. Anytime you've got any conjunctivitis, what I usually do if I'm doing it on the eyes, I usually grate up a potato and soak up a cotton wool with the juice, and then I'll just put the cotton wool on the eye. Or you can make little parcels for the eye. Well, the only problem is with the eyes, and if you want to put it on overnight, how are you going to get up and go to bed, go to the toilet or anything like that? You've got to make sure you do one eye at a time. It's a real difficult thing with eyes, because you either got to lay on your couch and do nothing for some time, or you've got to just go one-eyed around doing what you can. So you have to be aware of that. Yes?
I've heard that not a good idea to have poultices on your eyes if you've had a lens operation.
Okay, there you go.
Pull out anything foreign.
Okay, don't put it on your eye if you've had a lens operation. I don't know about that, Wendy. I'm sorry. But yeah, take it in mind. You need to be aware. Sometimes if you're trying to work with somebody who's got having some treatment, you've got to be aware of things. So that's a potato poultice. So you can use that. Now, next one that I'm going to go to is onion poultice. What am I going to do with the onion poultice? Well, there's a few things I can do with young poultice, and I've already done this here. And that's what I've already done, is I've cut up some onion and I've put some honey with it. And so the honey makes, and this is like honey water here in this. And I strain that off, and that becomes cough medicine. It's an excellent cough medicine. One of those that many people know how to go to use. Anyone here use cough medicine? Onion? That one? Yeah. Really works. You do garlic and honey. And put some garlic in there as well. Yep, that's right. So that is an excellent thing for your coughs and colds. You know, if you've got, sometimes you can't stop coughing at night. You know, this is quite a number of years ago, and you know how it is. You're all right during the day, and then you lie down in bed and you just start coughing and coughing and coughing. And I can remember one lady saying to me, she said that what she did was she had some pure frankincense oil, and she put a dot of it in that part of it, you know, in that hollow of just above her neckline there, near her thyroid, in that area there, but that hollow. Anyhow, so she just told me that. I had some frankincense, so that night I took some frankincense oil with me to bed, and I thought, if I start coughing, I'll do it. And would you believe, once I was in bed, I started coughing and coughing and coughing, and so I just reached out, I got the frankincense oil, and I put it in that part of I put about maybe some drops, you know, quite a number of drops in there, rubbed it around, and within seconds it stopped my coughing. After maybe 10 minutes, I think I started again, I did it again, and I stopped it again. And you know, from then on, I think I did it the next night, and after that it completely went away. And it gave me a new emphasis on what frankincense oil can do. Frankincense oil. It's an expensive oil. Look, can we have a microphone here, please? If people want to make comments so that we can get them on the tape.
Thank you. Okay, I went to my doctor with my coughing, and she suggested to take an antihistamine.
Yes.
Which did help.
Yes.
So is it antihistamine that's around in the house when we have open windows? I don't know.
I have no idea.
But the frankincense worked, yeah.
Well, the frankincense oil worked for me just in there. Absolutely. But that's beside it. I was talking about. But you know, if I have a little brain comes into my mind, I need to tell you now, because if I wait till later, I'll forget to tell you that. Okay, so back to onions. Okay, so what is onion good for? What else is onion good for? Onion is actually an antibiotic poultice. So you use onion anywhere on your body that you want to have an antibiotic. This is an excellent for your lung area. Now, if I was going to do it on my lungs or my chest, I would make sure that I put a hot poultice on. You do not put a cold poultice on a chest, because especially if you've got chest problems. So I would fold my poultice to about this size, and I would put it over my chest area. That would probably take two or three onions. What would I do with those onions? How would I get them to stay in place there? First of all, I would cook them. And this is in my book. You'll find the exact instructions how to do it in my book. What you do is you steam the onion. You either put the whole onion in the oven like that without cutting, and you just put it like in the onion, on a rack in the onion, and you dry bake it for probably about 20-25 minutes. It's going to be hot, but you'd cut it up, or I'll rephrase it. That's first one thing. You'd cut it up if you wanted to put the onion on your ears. I've got a little bit of a foam ball to show you what you do. If you've got an onion, you cut it, you just put it like that on your ears, half on each ear, and you bandage it and put it in place. But what I would do if I made it on the onions, I'd put a cloth over it, because it's very hot, remember? You've just taken it out of the onion, you put it on your ear, and you bandage around to keep it in place, and those fumes go down into your ear canal and will help with earache. That's ideal. Sorry about that, I got sidetracked about that. But this one was when I was supposed to be doing this one here for my chest. So I would either cut it and chop it all up, put it on an oven slide in the oven, and then I'd get it out so it's hot, or I'd chop it up and I would steam it in a steaming basket over water for 7 minutes. Okay, so it's very hot. I would put it out in my poultice. I would put it over the chest area here. I would get a hot water bottle, which I've got here, but I haven't got it right here in me. It's just over there. I'd put a hot water bottle over that, and I would just lie down. A couple of hours. That is super, super good for anybody who has any chest complaints. It's going to penetrate any lung problems. It's going to penetrate into your lungs. You can do, and I'll show you how to do it in a minute, but you can do another way you can do your poultice is, I'll show you how to do it now. I'll make a poultice here for a foot. Don't need so much cloth here. My scissors are a bit blunt. That's right. So this is a poultice that you can put anywhere on your body, but I would do this. This is a poultice I would do for my feet. Now this is excellent for anyone who's got coughing at night time or any asthma at night. Excellent for people who've got asthma, especially for little kids. You can just put this on their feet. They can go to bed with it, and I just slice it up like this. Doesn't have to be really neatly. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it out in that poultice. And then over the top of this, I would get a rolling pin and I would bruise all those onions. You can hear it scrunching in there. And all of a sudden, it becomes wet. You can feel it. Now, I'd fold over the ends properly like that. Better than I'm doing them here.
Use a stapler as well.
Pardon? Yes, staple the ends together. Good idea. Okay, so then I would put that on the sole of someone's feet, and then I'd bandage that in place on each foot, one for each foot. That will take chest congestion out. It will soothe asthma down like incredibly. People who get asthma, that will go away. Sorry. No, I wouldn't do it possibly for fever. Not that's the one. I'm sorry, it's just got in my eyes.
A good cure for that is to hold some cold water in your mouth. It's a bit hard to talk then.
Yep. Okay. Now, I was about 6 years ago, I was doing a program in America. And this was at a place called Loma Linda, okay? Or actually it was a suburb next to Loma Linda. And a lot of the people, and I was told the man who organised this program, who was a pastor, but he was also a medical doctor. And he told me, and he said to me, oh, we've got a couple of doctors in the audience tonight. And I thought, oh, well, okay, that's all right. I've still got to do my program. It doesn't matter who's there. Anyhow, at the end of the program, this lady put up a hand and she said, oh, excuse me, she says, she's a doctor. And she said she's had 2 patients. One of them was, whether they were, she sounded like one was a friend of hers, but she didn't say they both were, but one was a friend. She'd had an accident and she was a paraplegic and she had an accident, and she said that they worked on this lady and they did onion poultices down the spine. And she said it was a matter of months and that woman was walking again. She said they also did onion poultices down the spine of a paraplegic, and he showed movement. And I can't remember the story, whether she said that he walked again or not, I don't know, but she said he definitely responded. And I thought to myself, wow, this onion poultices for this? And as I was going through this, and then all of a sudden another man put his hand up down the back. He said, oh, I want to tell you a story. This man was looked like he was in his 30s. He said, when my little brother was a baby, and he said, I can't remember it all, but I know that he had polio and he couldn't walk. And she said, my mother did onion poultices on him every night. And she said, and after he grew up, all of a sudden he started walking again. And so I thought to myself, here it is, there's another one. And then the minister himself, who was the pastor, who was also a doctor, he came and he says, oh, I want to tell you also something about it. He says, I was in Africa doing a trip, and he said, there was a group of women, they were cooking on this big pot above on some stones, like some Africans possibly do, I don't know. Anyhow, he said that the pot tipped off the stones and it went all over one of the women's legs, all of what was cooking. And they called him and they said, quick, you're a doctor, do something. And he says, oh, what do I do? Have you got any onions? No, but we've got a bag of he said, do you have any potatoes? And he said, no, but we've got a bag of onions. So he got the onions and he did onion poultices all up a leg. And he said it just helped. It took all the inflammation. And probably, he said, 3 days later they looked at it and it was really almost healed. He just said, onion poultices. He says, I have a new respect for onion poultices. And I thought to myself, it's the same here. We have to realise, you see, who does the healing in all of these things? It's God that does the healing. Many times we'll pray for these things as we ask for healing on them. So, that's our onion poultices. I'll just put that in there. So we can use lots of things. Okay, cabbage poultices. What cabbage my favourite cabbage to use for these is not the bok choy, that Chinese cabbage, the one that goes up into a little bit more of a point. They're very wet. You rolling pin them out. You see, this is just a drumhead cabbage, and if I was going to use this leaf, which I would need to first cut out the stalk like this. That's the hard part. And just use the leaves. Now, how do I use the leaves and what do I do? This particular poultice is, it draws out liquid, it draws out juices. So if you want to find something, you've got a swelling and it's got juice there, you want to pull that out, you use the cabbage poultice. So what do I do for this one? I just put it on the breadboard or whatever, and I get a rolling pin and I just roll over it and bruise it again. You can hear the cells of the cabbage leaves just crunching. And if I did this with that other cabbage, that Chinese cabbage, which is called, it would be so wet. And I love it because that's what it is. Now, I've done this on a number of people. The one I did it on was a man from Tonga. I was staying with this lady who was a very influential lady in Tonga. And Tonga is a society which is very, what can I say, they have a class, you know, she was an upper class lady. So we were staying in a house and she was a very wealthy lady and she had a brother there. And so he came to visit her and he had huge legs. He was a diabetic and his legs had swelled up and he could hardly walk. They were burning. He said that he couldn't put them up because they hurt him. He couldn't put them down because they hurt him. He'd been to the hospital, they couldn't help him. He'd been to the doctor, they couldn't help him. So he decided to come to us. Now, who is us? I was there with a group of Fijian women and we were there doing health programs in Tonga. I was teaching them the practical stuff like this. They were teaching the cooking. They were going in and telling them how to change their diet to get a different... They've got to get rid of all their stuff because you can't believe it. I mean, you can, I guess. But the stuff that they're eating is just absolute rubbish. Yeah, and as you know, a lot of Tongans are very, very... suffering with their health problems. You know, they have a lot of problems because they've adopted the Western diet and their bodies are not able to handle it. So you'll find, so they were having struggles over there. So this man, he was huge in his leg. He was a diabetic. And so he came to us and they said to us, well, what can you do for him? So the first thing I did was I said, okay, we will do some potato poultices on his leg. So the first night we did potato poultices on his leg. And after that, I thought, you know what, those potatoes, we paid, was $5 a kilo for them, and we used all of our potatoes up. And I thought, this is not a very cost-effective thing. We were there, we didn't have a lot of money. We were there sort of like on a shoestring budget. So I said to him, I'll tell you what to do. You bring 2 heads of cabbage back to me in the morning or in the night. It was morning or night, I can't remember which. I was doing it 1 in the morning and 1 in the night. I said, you bring back the cabbage to me, fresh cabbages, and I'll do a cabbage poultice. So I did a cabbage poultice. 1 cabbage went on one leg and the other cabbage went on the other leg. So what do I do? We got all the women there, because it's not easy to put a cabbage poultice and pack it around the legs. So we rolled it all out. And as we went back, we found out that those cabbages were the best, the Chinese cabbage, because they're nice and wet. And we just packed them around the leg like this, like that. And we got somebody to bandage that in place. So we went from just his knee right down to his foot. Then I put a huge garbage bag on it. Okay, it was nighttime when I was doing this because I can remember that. We put a huge garbage bag over the top because I know that it will be wet. Okay, so we put it on there, 1 on each leg. So we left. He was walking off with these big balloon legs, you know, garbage bags on his legs. But I sort of taped them in a little bit with sticky tape. And he came in the morning and he'd taken off the outside, but he said as he was walking, he went as he was walking along because they were full of moisture. And he came back and we cut them off. We just get some scissors and cut them off and throw that all away. And then I washed his legs and put with soap and water, put a new clean one on them, and did that in the morning. And then he came back for night time. So we did them 2.5 times. So we did a night, morning, night, and that was it. And at the end, you could feel and you could pinch the flesh around his legs. You knew that they were completely gone down. Now, when you hear this, you can get excited about this. And you think, oh, this is so great. And I thought to myself, yes. And I got something I did, and in retrospect, I don't believe it was the right call. Somebody came to me and they asked me, can I do poultices on their leg? They had really swollen legs. And I said, oh, yes, I could. And I knew they were on medication, but it just didn't occur to me to think that they would contradict each other. I did a cabbage poultice on her legs, but it actually brought out more. I think it was detrimental for it because she was on medication that was actually causing fluid to come into her legs. Do you know some medications so you need to be wary of what some people are doing when you're giving everything like that, because sometimes you need to check, are you on any medication? Another lady, she had late stages of breast cancer and she had lymphedema in her arms, and she loved natural remedies. Both of these women, they loved natural remedies. They said, oh yes, please do it for me. And I should, because they were both excited. They wanted me to do it for them. And this second lady with the arm, the lymphedema in the arm, I did it on her. But this is so powerful. It will pull out other toxins in their skin. And it looked like, no, it was going to blister the skin because it was going to pull out every bit of toxin in her body and it was going to bring it out through the skin. And it was and she didn't need this in late stages of breast cancer, okay? It's not like it was going to do any good for her. What I'm saying is with natural remedies, it's better to do them right earlier than wait until they're very late stages, because it's really not going to get much effect when you're right at the end and you're doing a very late stage person. Yes, if you're going to relieve pain, that's different. But, usually it's not going to turn them around right at the end of time or end of their life. So it didn't. I said, no, we're not doing them anymore, because I could see little blisters could have appeared. And I said, no, we won't do them. But that's the idea with the cabbage poultice. You can put it over cysts, this is really good for sinus. You can put that over your face for sinus, because remember, it's going to pull out congestion. Any sinus problems. It's also going to put, this is very good for women who've got breast mastitis or any engorged breasts if they're having a baby. So your women, your mothers or your grandmothers or whatever, your girls are having babies and they have the engorged breasts. This is excellent. And I believe they're doing this in a lot of the hospitals now for women. Yeah, so, yeah. I also thought one young woman, she'd worked at a health retreat, and she told me she experimented there was women coming in with lymphedema, and she said we experimented using shop cabbages versus organic cabbages, and we tried them, and she said, you know what? She said the organic cabbages worked a little bit better, but the others worked too. And she said when she'd go in the morning, what it does is it pulls out, in the lymphedema, she said it pulls out, and in the poultice there is this sort of slimy, brown, liquidy sort of stuff that's pulling it out through the skin. Another woman, she had some cysts on her back, and she just used, and you see, if you've got cabbage, remember I told you the lady who, she couldn't be bothered to rolling pinning them all. And if you had a big area, I would just throw these in the food processor and make them into a mush. Even put a little bit of water to get it soft and chopped all up, because it needs to be pulverized. That's what it needs to be done. Now, if you've made it a bit wet by you put a bit much water in there, you can use anything. You could just even use flour, ordinary old flour. You could use Epsom salts. You could use clay. You could use charcoal. You could use... I've tried it with using rolled oats. You can use anything like that. So it doesn't matter. So it needs to have a thickening agent to it. You have to have it a little bit thick. So it can't be too sloppy. Otherwise it just goes everywhere. Okay, any questions? Just hold on. Where's the microphone? We need Jess. Jess, can you be the microphone man? Thank you. Here, this one over here. This is Sandy.
There, Kaye.
Mm-hmm.
What about Morton's neuroma underneath the foot?
Well, you need to tell me what that is.
It's crystallised. It's like a spur
Yep.
in between the second and third toe.
Castor oil.
Castor oil, is
Castor oil. Massage
Okay.
castor oil on it. Castor oil's
not
tomorrow.
a poultice.
Yeah, you could do poultice.
poultice.
Yeah, you could do it, but castor oil's tomorrow.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
we'll learn about that.
Do you know, I told you earlier when I was in Tonga, I went over to an island called Vava'u, and that's a beautiful, the most picturesque island you can possibly come in. It's like the pure, pristine Pacific Oceans, you know, the bluest of blue skies and the beautiful green scenery and everything around there. It was just wonderful. I got onto this island, and there's one lady there. She worked for the agricultural department, and this island had 15,000 population. Well, I thought, we'll get a few here, maybe a few. Well, it turned out she probably nearly 30 women. I turned up off the airplane. She took me there and she says, well, we're already waiting for you. And they're lined up, they're sitting around the table waiting for me. And I thought, I haven't got anything here ready with me. You know, I haven't got a potato, I haven't got an onion. And I said, have you got any cabbage? Oh, she said, but we've got lettuce growing in our garden. They had the most beautiful organic lettuce that they were growing for markets. And they were grown in a shade house, and they were beautiful. Look, they were like huge and green. And I said to them, okay. I said, well, I've pulled some leaves off the lettuce. I said, well, look, you all know what cabbage is. I said, this is lettuce, but let's just put it on a person's leg and imagine that I'll show you how to do it using lettuce. Okay, and I called a woman out of the audience. I said, who here has anything wrong? And this woman says, I've got a crooked knee. And so she came out, and I did this poultice on her leg using lettuce. I sent her home. And in the morning, she came back and she says, look at me. She says, I had the best night's sleep in 10 years. She said, I could roll in bed. She said, look. And guess what? It was a lettuce poultice, not a cabbage poultice. What I'm saying is that you can use other things. I didn't know a lettuce would work, but bearing in mind, the lettuce was very, very green. It was very, very healthy. It wasn't some sort of iceberg lettuce from the supermarket. This was a very healthy lettuce.
Kaye, do you know what would be good for neuropathy of the feet? You know, where you get a tingling, hot, cold.
Neuropathy of things,
Poultice.
I wouldn't go for hot and cold because as much as I would for poultices. I would actually go for a cayenne poultice. And we're going to do that one tomorrow. Cayenne poultice is bringing blood to the area. Mm-hmm. So you've got to get blood to the area. Yes?
Did you use just around the knee, the lettuce?
The lettuce, I packed it around the knee like I packed the I showed you that I did with
leg.
the leg around there. I just went around the knee only. But as I said, remember, it was a very healthy lettuce. I looked at it and I thought, boy, these are beautiful. They were just so big and so green and such good. It's very volcanic soil, which is really good. Okay, so that's our cabbage. I wanted to share with you slippery elm, and I was trying to find my other container of slippery elm. Now, do you know what slippery elm is? It's a bark of a tree, and you use it for any problem. A lot of these poultices, this particular one you can use internally in your body, or you can use it externally as a poultice. Slippery elm you could use to pull out toxins, anything through your skin. Like, for instance, now how would I use slippery elm? I'll talk it first externally. It's a dry powder. It takes up quite a bit of water, so you need to mix water, and it's probably best using at the stage of using hot water on it. It seems to work better with hot water, but you can use cold water too if you don't have hot. But you make it into a paste, sort of a runny paste, and depending on how much area you are using, let's say you have made a poultice that big, you could use it anywhere where I just said you could use potato for. But generally, I use potato, number one, because of the cost. It works like potato, but slippery elm works, it's a little bit dearer. You know, it's not a cheap thing. It's not something you have to buy it in all the time. Potatoes are easier to come by, but slippery elm is very good. I'll tell you a story. My granddaughter was only 2 at the time, and she had a gate swing shut on the back. It was a gate outside, and it swung up, and it was a corrugated iron gate, and it swung shut on her, and it caught her the back of her heel, right on her Achilles tendon, and it severed it nearly, almost. It wasn't quite through, but it was almost through. So she had to go to the hospital, doctors, operation to get this tendon reconnected. Leg plaster, came out of plaster. When it came out of plaster, they found that there was a stitch left behind inside, which was causing a problem because it was right. Remember, she was 2. It was just coming up into winter, and my daughter said to me, she said, "Mum, it's coming up into winter. I can't put shoes on it because it's right where her shoes go, on a heel. It's just so sore and tender." And she would cry every time that she put shoes on. It was too sore. So I said, what we'll do is use, and I was going away, and I was telling her this is what she had to do. I said, make a tiny, weeny little slippery elm poultice. And you mix it with a bit of water and put it on a Band-Aid and put a crisscross Band-Aid over the top of it, right over that heel. And within probably, she did it a few times because, you know, you need to change it, and you do it again a couple of times. And then all of a sudden she could see it was coming to a head, and she just said she just squeezed it and out it popped. And the doctors had told her that had to go in. She had to go in and have an operation to get that cut out. So you can pull things out like that. Yes? Just hold on.
We were getting firewood, and I ran into a stick that was poking out, and it damaged my shin. And it was taking ages to heal, and I put a slippery elm poultice on it, and it brought out a couple of big splinters.
Yeah. So it will pull things out, right? It's a very good drawing poultice. It's ideal if you've got a child who've got school sores. You just make tiny little parcel, little. I wouldn't even bother putting them in packages. You could put them in a tiny, weeny little poultice, but I just pop it straight on the skin and put a Band-Aid over it. That seems to work. Warts, I would go for some other things. For warts, I wouldn't do... Look, you could try it. Some people, they get it all wrong and they try something and they'll come back and say, oh, guess what? Slippery elm worked for my warts. Oh, and I didn't mean it. So I don't know. There's lots of things I don't know. I've never tried it on them, but I doubt it would. I know for warts, I would go either for castor oil. I would try burning it off with petty spurge, or I would go for garlic, burning it off with garlic. Garlic is excellent for warts. Just hold on. Just hold on.
But when we were young, Dad used to say to spit on your warts because the first saliva in the morning was very acidic. So this was from our father. And I used to say that to our kids. And then when they went to school, if anybody had a wart or something on their hand, they'd say spit on it. But anyway, it went away. So whether or not that worked or not, I don't know.
Do you know something? If you've got a mole, and especially if you've got it. Thank you, Alison. Do you know? Yeah, that's right. It was a mole. Your dad did it because Ali and Sandy's father is my first cousin, so I know them well, okay? And I remember how much he loved natural remedies, didn't he? And your mum too, yeah, okay. They were actually one of the photos that I've got in the hydrotherapy section has got your mum sitting in there and with her feet in the hot foot bath.
When I went, that's really loud. When I went to Vanuatu, I stubbed my toe on one of the rocks on the shore, and I was very infected for the first week I was there. But a lady, she brought out activated charcoal, and she put it in a cotton bud, she wrapped my toe in it overnight. And in the morning, when I took it off, it was all the pus had left, all the infection had left. It was 100% good again. But then that day, it slowly was drawing more out, and then the next day she put another one on, and it was completely gone by the second day. So activated charcoal works with
we're going to talk about activated charcoal tomorrow.
Apologies.
Yeah, you jumped the gun, but never mind. It's great.
Potato does the same thing.
But you know something? Don't be frightened to get things wrong. I can remember one class I had, and there was a man there, and I would call up people from the audience, and I said, okay, and he said. And he told me what his problem was. He says he felt like he had ropes across his stomach. He'd had an operation. And so I thought to myself, I think I told him I would put on it. I can't even remember what poultice I put on it. And I put this poultice on his stomach. And when he told me what had happened, I couldn't believe it. I said, I got the poultice mixed up. He shouldn't have had that one. He should have had the other one. To me. But then after he'd had it on, probably about an hour or so, he was waiting in the class there, and he was just says, "Look at me." And he went over to the side and he says, "Look at me. I can do this, bend over. I couldn't get past that bar." He said, "Look at me. I can go right down here now." And I thought to myself, you know what? It's the God who's behind all these. You know, we can get the poultices mixed up. Don't stress out. I can say, what harm can you do to anyone just putting a parcel or wrapping up some potato and putting it on the outside of their body, or some onion? You're not going to harm anyone. Don't be frightened by this. It's so easy to do. So don't be frightened. But this we're still on this slippery elm. This one on the outside of your body will actually regrow tissue. Now, where did I learn this from? I was doing a herbal course from America, and in this course it talked about the men who were going through the American Civil War. A lot of them actually had gunshot wounds, and you know, they didn't have all the medications and whatever we've got now. But you know what they used to do? They used to pack their wounds with slippery elm, and guess what? It would regrow back. And I said there was a lady called me, and she said to me, she says, "Kaye," she says, I've had an operation. It's just above my waist, below my breast, in that area." And she described it as maybe about that big, and she said she had got golden staph in it from the hospital. And she said, I went back and got it scraped out, And she said, it's come back the second time. What do I do? And I said, pack it with slippery elm. That's something we all need to have, slippery elm. Where do you get it from? Get it from a health food shop or wherever. But get a supply of slippery elm powder on it. You will need it. Get it now while you can have a chance to buy it, because there's going to be one day when you want to have it and you won't be able to get it. Anyway, make it into a little bit of a paste, put it on into that wound, tape it in place, and guess what? She went back to the doctor and she says, he said, looks like it's healing, doesn't it? So, slippery elm. Now, there's another story that I have. There was a lady, she came to my house, and actually there's two stories, and they're very similar. One, I saw this first of all, this lady came to my house, and she actually said her husband, who she now was her ex-husband, she said he was sawing in the workshop, and he cut the tips of his finger off in the electronic saw, circular saw. And she knew what she did. She made a mixture of comfrey, wheat germ oil, and sometimes it's aloe vera, but she used honey, I think. You can use, you're right, they will all do it, okay? You could put slippery elm in there too. That's what's triggered my memory. And what it will do, it will regrow the tissue. She said the tips of his finger grew back. And I went like this. I said, I beg your pardon? I've never heard of that before. And I spun around. She had her son there who was about 18. He was in the same room, and I spun around and I said, do you remember this? He said, yeah, it happened. And then when I saw this on TV, this is the same. Agatha Thrash had a man who was working with him, the same thing, but he used slippery elm in his. Okay? But the secret is, if you've got some injury like that, you do not allow it to dry out. You've got to keep packing it wet all the time. Don't allow see, if it dries out, it'll heal over. And we don't want it to heal over. We want it to grow out. We want it to keep growing and repairing that cells underneath.
Did it grow his fingernails?
I think it did. He said, look, he said he can even play the guitar again. So, do you know something as simple as one of my grandsons had a blind pimple right in the centre of his forehead there, and it was annoying him. He said he'd had it for about 6 months, and he said it would not go away. And I said, I know what to do. And he was so happy, because all I did was just put a bit on there and a Band-Aid, and within a couple of days, it's gone, you know. It came to a head and it came out. He was so thrilled because he'd had it for such a long time. So just simple little things. So that's slippery elm, using it externally on the outside of your body. It will heal, and remember, it's used primarily for regrowing tissues, especially during the war years. So you need a supply of it. You never know when you'll need it. Okay, now there's another way you can take it internally. This is when your body needs healing inside. So you can mix it with water, and you can usually you put a little bit of honey, and it will coat your digestive tract. This is excellent for regrowing your lining of your digestive tract.
How often can you take that? Sorry.
Not really. Look, how often can you take that? You can take that as often as you need it. I can remember Barbara O'Neill was telling me that she cured, or she was instrumental. A fella came to her with really severe Crohn's. He was going to the toilet 15 times a day, and she said he was like inflamed, and she said one time she used like an hour, every hour she used slippery elm, the next hour they used aloe vera. Then they went to slippery elm, aloe vera, right throughout the time. And after probably only a few days, he would back to 3 times a day. He was amazed. You know, it's pretty debilitating when you're like that with it on the toilet all the time. It can be really stressful. So this is the stuff to have in your, it's not your medicine cabinet. We've got to call it another sort of cabinet. This is your, my husband used to call it my apothecary. God's pharmacy. This is right. This is God's pharmacy. That's right. So, but you can use it for your throat. You've got a sore throat. And I actually use this because sometimes I lose my sore throat when I'm up here talking. And I've often got slippery elm and honey there. And I know that that really helps me heaps because it coats your throat. Now, another one we're going to do is garlic. Humble old garlic. They've already got this garlic clove peeled for me. Similar to onion, but you've got to be a little bit more careful with garlic. You cannot put garlic on the bare skin because it will blister. So if you're going to use garlic, and I think garlic poultice is the choice poultice that you would use for whooping cough. You've got little, especially for little kids, but what you must do is you must coat the sole of the foot with oil first and coat it, because if you put raw garlic onto that little baby's skin, it's going to blister. You're going to blister anywhere. I had one lady decided she had something, a growth on her face, and she decided to burn it off her face. Well, it left this red mark there that stayed there for probably, she said, it's been there for nearly a year. She said, how do I get rid of it? I said, I don't know. You've got to be careful where you do some things, because I wouldn't be putting garlic near my eyes or my face. You just got to just be aware of it, because it has consequences. Especially this, if you're going to put it anywhere, it will blister. Remember that. But one of the classes, one of the guys came to me and he says, I've got these funny little growth things on the back of my back. They're like a raised wart type of things, and a lot of people get them when they get older. And he said, what I do is I just cut it off. I made a sliver of it, put it on, put a Band-Aid, crisscrossed a Band-Aid on it, and guess what? It blistered it, put another one on, blistered it again, and after 2 or 3 days, it came off. The whole thing just lifted it off. So you can use it to lift, because if you have a skin cancer or something and you go to the doctor, what are they going to do? Burn it off. Well, guess what? We're burning it off with garlic. We're doing our own burn-off effort. Okay, so just make sure that now you can also use this. I would slice it up and I would put it in a little glass jar. I'd only put a tiny bit of olive oil in it and let the cut garlic soak up, and then you let it soak for maybe 3 days. You can use that garlic oil as eardrops for earache. Excellent. Garlic oil. Another thing you can do for women with vaginal thrush is use garlic in the vagina, as that helps amazingly. It's not the only thing. I think that we're going to talk about borax another time. I think that works better. But this is great too. Really good for thrush. Any questions on those?
The garlic in the vagina is just by itself, or with oil?
Yeah. What I would do, I would just do it, you insert it in itself, and I would put it in overnight. When you go to the toilet, it'll just come out in the morning. No, it doesn't burn. No, it doesn't burn. No, it doesn't burn. So, look, I've tried all of these things, I used to say, I'd try them. I wouldn't say anything to Peter, and he'd come up and he'd give me a kiss. He says, I know what you've been doing. Do you know something? You do something like that. You put, even if you garlic or onion on the feet, or if you do a garlic in your vagina, within probably a minute it comes on your breath. It's that quick. It goes through your body. It's amazing. Amazing. You realise how your body is just connected.
How many days do you have to do that for if you had thrush? You really should be treating the internal problem then, shouldn't you?
True, but yet sometimes it can be such an irritation you want to just use the external, or look, I would do it every night for a week. But as I said, I think that I haven't used that for quite a number of years, because I'm telling people now, my number one go-to is always borax. Much easier, much easier. Yeah, as a douche, yeah. Yeah. Or you put it into a capsule and you insert that. And believe me, for young girls, it can be the worst thing that's happened to them when they get that sort of thing. It's really hard, because it's hard to get rid of. Very hard to get rid of. But you can use lots of poultices. I can remember using a poultice of, someone here remember using a poultice of soap and sugar? You get soap, you soften up the soap, it's very squishy, and you put sugar in it. It's excellent. I can remember using it for somebody's had it all over their hand. They had this really nasty, nasty sore on their hand. We just put it on there, and would you believe, so quickly it healed up. And I said, wow, look, this works. And sometimes it stuns people to see how quickly these poultices work. And they get really switched on, and they think, wow, this is incredible, something so simple. And it is simple, really. Honey is another thing. I don't know what I've done with my bottle of honey. You know what honey looks like. What do you use honey for? You can use it, well, it's ideal for healing wounds, isn't it? Ideal for healing wounds. So you can put it on externally. They even say that Manuka honey is best, but if you don't have Manuka, just use your normal honey. You can use it on bites, you can use it on sores. Another thing you can use honey for is on cataracts. Honey, you put a tiny little bit of honey in water, and you've got a little eye cup, just like this, a little eye cup. And I put in probably maybe a half a teaspoon of honey and maybe a half a teaspoon of warm water, and I just mix it up, and you just put it over your eye and you rinse out your eye with honey water. And you do that in the morning, and then at the night time you put lemon and water, and you do the same. So one's morning and one's night, so lemon and water. Now what does it do to your eye? It makes it smart. You can actually feel, oh, that stings, but don't let it get stressed. That's going to bring healing to it.
What ratio would you use the lemon and water mix in the eye?
About half and half.
Half and half, okay.
Another one too, they say for glaucoma you use a mixture of glycerine and water. And recently when I was in America, they told me that they're having great amount of success using grapefruits. Grapefruits breaking down cataracts. So that's another thing we can go through. But they were taking it internally. They were eating 3 grapefruit a day, and it was dissolving the plaque in all their arteries. And it wasn't just in their arteries for their internal arteries, their heart and their pulmonary arteries. It was also cleansing out the eyes.
With the grapefruit, they say you've got to be careful if you're on heart medication. So you've got to ask again.
Well, that shows you, doesn't it? Because it does something. It actually works against your heart medication. Once again, I want you to stress, when you're working with people, make sure you find out if they're on medication, and it's really up to them what they want to do. And you've got to go and you need to research it, because quite frankly, I mean, I've heard of different things and I forget everything. It's not like I can remember every single disease, what I've got to do.
Honey, what's good for acne is honey and charcoal.
Yes,
You mix
made
it
into
up.
a paste.
Make it in paste. Make yourself very black. Change your gender. No, not your gender. But you can just put it all on and leave it on there for an hour or two, and it really nourishes the skin and draws out the rubbish. And it's very good for young people.
Okay, acne. And we did a poultice of charcoal and rolled oats on a young woman who had such bad acne. She was in her 20s. She had such bad acne. And she said it hurt her when she was lying in bed at night because of the pressure that was on her face. And it was just huge. They weren't just little pimples. They were just huge. And she said it was so painful. So we did a poultice of charcoal and rolled oats. And she said, oh, that is so good. It made her feel so good. She was sold on it. Yeah. So, once you start working with people, they hear what you're doing and they all say, oh, let's try this. And they get so excited because, they see things actually working. Another one which we can do is Epsom salts. Now, this is a little bottle of Epsom salts that I've got, and it's just crystallised down the bottom. But the Epsom salts crystals are down the bottom, and the rest of it is just water. Now, I keep that under my sink, already made up, because guess what that's good for? Burns, any burn that you have. And so you've got it ready made up, because if you've got a burn, you don't want to be hurrying and making it up. You need it ready made up. And so then you just tip it over your whatever, and you just cover it with maybe an old cloth. I've got a lot of rags and cloth that I just cover it over with, and I just keep it in place. But that is excellent for burns. One of my friends said that she was making jam, and she said it splattered all over her arm here, the jam. And she quickly got the Epsom salts and flooded it all over there and just put a cloth over it to keep the air out of it. And she said it just healed, so no blisters, nothing. But that's right. But she said where she forgot to do it right up the top, it was blistered where all the little spots were. She didn't get them, but down here she said it didn't blister. You're right, it takes the pain away. So you need to have Epsom salts, and you need to have it ready made up under your sink where you know it is, ready all the time.
So what's the mixture of that?
It's really, you just put it in a jar, maybe a good half a jar, and just add water to it. And it'll just it'll soak up what it has, and the rest of it will just stay. As long as there are some undissolved crystals down the bottom, it will be fine. That is super saturated water with Epsom salts. So, that's an Epsom salts water.
Kaye.
Yes?
Can you soak your feet in Epsom salts?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your feet are going to pull a lot of toxins out of your body. Sometimes they even do foot patches and all those sort of things with your feet. So what can you else do? And you can use a lot of these poultices for your feet, charcoal for your feet. You could use, but sometimes I couldn't be bothered to putting it in. It's easier to do in foot baths, you're right. Much easier. Just dipping your feet in there, putting them in. You could do charcoal, you could do anything in your water. Did I tell you, did I just say before about the moles on you remember you were saying the saliva? Did I tell you about the moles? First thing in the morning, when you wake up, the saliva, you get your saliva, and if you've got any mole on your face or anywhere in your body, just use that saliva first thing in the morning and just dab it on your mole. Or, if it's on your mole. Skin tab, I'll come to that in a minute. But your moles first, you put the moles on, and it can take a few months, but you will fade it. And you know how people have moles in a very prominent part of their bodies if they don't want to get it cut out? It can take a while. It could even take a year. And I can remember one of the ladies came to the classes and I was telling her about this and she got all excited. She said she went home and she said that she decided to, she had a mole back just on down here, and she said so she decided she would do that not only every morning, she said in the middle of the night she'd wake up, she'd go like the middle of the night. And she said, it was 3 months, and she said, look, it's gone, completely gone, that mole. So wouldn't you like, especially if you've got somebody who's got, especially, like some people have moles in such prominent places in their body and they want to get rid of them, just tell them, well, what harm is it for starting to putting your own saliva on it? You stop and think, how many animals do that with the cats do that, don't they? And the dogs, and they lick their offspring. Is this what we should be doing, licking our offspring? Yes?
Just a question. If you have teenagers that play sports, right, and they get athlete's foot or any infections from socks or anything, what would any poultice work with that?
Yeah, I would do that. Let me just say, what we were just saying about just before that, it just came through my mind. I was going to say that to you.
Athlete's foot, any infections in the feet from,
fungal,
I guess in a way, yes, fungal infection.
Fungal infections. Okay, fungal infections, I would do probably feet in, let me think some of the things. Borax water would be ideal. Fungus and borax are just work completely towards or against each other, whatever you would say. Yeah, so they are excellent. Yeah, we'll talk about borax one other day, but if you won't be here to watch it, yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's warm or cold. Make borax into a paste. Yeah.
And if it was any dry skin or anything around your heels and stuff, because I know there's a lot of problems with that.
Yeah, okay. Athlete's foot. Probably, look, I'd try you can even try apple cider vinegar. Dab that on too. There'd be a number of things I'd try, yes?
Dry heels, castor oil.
Yes.
Put a sock overnight and you can, it comes off very easily.
Yes.
It just melts away.
Yeah, probably, but that's that's not for athlete's foot. Basically, what it is their body is quite inflamed. Their body has got see, athlete's foot are just reflecting what's in your body. Okay, so you've got fungal infections in your body. For some people it comes out, like I said, for the women, most women's fungal infections seem to predominantly come out in the vagina. Men, maybe somewhere else, maybe it's through their feet. So you've got, and so, like teenage boys, I mean, some of them have got pretty strong feet, haven't they? It should be coming out, that waste product should be coming out through their bowels. That's the problem. Yeah, here, just hear this lady. Yes, come on.
Peroxide foot bath would work quite well for that.
Yes.
And funnily enough, for dry heels, I don't know if it's unique to me, I started having lemon juice, cayenne pepper, Celtic salt, and about a tablespoon of cold-pressed olive oil every morning. And I noticed after a week or so, my dry heels were a lot better than cracked heels. So maybe worth a try. Sorry, lemon, cold-pressed olive oil, Celtic salt and cayenne pepper.
Yeah, you can put it on the outside too. Thanks, Sandy.
Kaye, would that also, for the fungal infections, would that work for animals like dogs licking their paws? Soak their feet in apple cider vinegar with
do you know what? Can I tell you?
salts?
Can I tell you my number one go-to for fungal infections is chlorine dioxide. That's my number one go-to. And I haven't talked about that here. I don't even know. Maybe we can squeeze in something about that because I'd love you to know about chlorine dioxide. everyone needs to know about it, how good it is, how, and it's quite cheap. It's not like expensive. I haven't got anything about chlorine dioxide in that book. There's nothing about that in there. Possibly chlorine dioxide has been one of those substances that's been highly on the moment you mention it on the internet, you'd be banned. And so but it's eased a little bit on chlorine dioxide. They're allowing a little bit more out now. But the moment you mention that word, you'd get banned. And that's why because I know these talks are being live streamed, we've got to be careful where we go to, because so many of the things that I say can be banned. And I was banned from America last month, just because my YouTube clip was banned because I'd said something. I don't even know what I said. I really don't know. It was just normal. I don't know what I said. So it happens, and it happens quite readily when you're talking about these are so alternative that, people think that they're just crazy, So do you want to say something?
Only when you mentioned that, because when I was growing up, my parents put garlic in my ear because I had terrible earaches. I never had grommets or anything, but I used to think they were crazy.
And did the garlic in the ears work?
Yeah, I never had grommets like my kids did, and I never really sort of went for it. But now, in the last 10 years or so, I hear all this coming up. I go, wow, this is amazing. This is exactly what my parents were doing years ago.
Do you know what I heard? That grommets often are caused from because the kids have been put on dairy. Yeah, see, this is the point. Getting back to, you see, I was talking earlier this morning about eyesight and how my eyes was just, often I would have to wear dark glasses when I was probably in my 20s. Well, I had a grandson when he was I have a grandson, but I still have him, but he's a lot older now. But when he was a small boy, he was only 4 or 5, and he had to wear sunglasses. This was he had such super, super sensitive eyes that he couldn't go outside. Even on a day like today, he'd need to wear dark glasses outside. But one time his mother told me, and she told me, I had him tested. He is super, super allergic to dairy. And she said, and they noticed the moment he had anything with dairy in, his eyes would just go so very, very sensitive. And then when he got off the dairy, his eyes settled down, and he doesn't have to wear dark glasses all the time. So it's just incredible, because you just beware that these things are related to what you're eating in your diet.
Now that you've said that, my eyes used to water first thing or early in the morning when I'd go for my morning walk, and since I've stopped having dairy, that doesn't happen anymore. So, I wasn't dairy intolerant, but the fact that I was eating dairy foods and now I don't, and the eye watering or the eye sensitivity isn't as prominent now.
I don't know if it's anywhere else, but it was with him. It really was with him. Very sensitive in the eyes. Very sensitive. And he was becoming quite, because he had to wear dark glasses everywhere he went, and people were sort of thinking, what's with this kid? Why he's got to have dark glasses everywhere he goes? Wouldn't matter where he was. Even in the winter days, he had dark glasses. So, but it was just super, super sensitive, and they tested him out, and they found that he had a highly allergic to, and he was also allergic to gluten and dairy. See, gluten and dairy go hand in hand. Yeah. Okay, any other comments? I'm not sure, because I've really covered the ones this afternoon that I was going to cover. I've got a lot more to. possibly there's another few that I can just think of, and that is when to lower blood pressure, you can actually make up an Epsom salts drench. What that means is, and I think this is in my book under Epsom salts, what you do is you make a very strong solution of Epsom salts, and after you finish your bath, you just drizzle that Epsom salts over you and just pat it dry and let it dry naturally, and it'll bring down your blood pressure.
And just leave it on.
You leave it on, yeah. And another thing which I forgot to tell you about slippery elm, you make slippery elm into a very runny paste, and you can put it on your hair. It is the most beautiful hair conditioner out. It is beautiful. It makes your hair feel so soft and lovely. So just try a slippery elm poultice on your hair. And it's all good for you. Now, a lot of these things that you put on your hair, a lot of these things are not good for you. Well, this one is. So there's lots of things you can do. I also make up a drink of sort of anti-plague formula, which is a mixture of cayenne. I use some jalapenos, and this is good for the winter months. Jalapenos, ginger, garlic, onion, and you can put horseradish in. And I put it in the blender with apple cider vinegar and just blend it. And I put the whole jalapeno in, or 2 jalapenos in, and it is super hot. Now, if I've made some, I've had classes and I go around and I give everyone a teaspoon and I say, some of the women, they say, ew, it's so hot. And then you go along to someone else and say, that's lovely, it'd make nice salad dressing. So you have all sorts of responses to it. But I can tell you that I do know, it's called the anti-plague formula. It is so strong, nothing can possibly live where it is. You take a tablespoon of that and you take it down, you will not have the plague, you will not have anything anymore. It's so strong it actually eats through the lid of the bottle where you put it in. Yeah, it is, it does. Now when you've got a cold, when you've got the flu coming on, when you feel you're coming down with the flu, have a whole bottle of that made up. Now what I do sometimes is I strain it, which means you're straining out the pulp, or you can have it with the pulp in. Now this is in the book, okay, the recipe's in the book. Well, you have it, and if you take it, now I tell you what, my son's a school teacher and he went into, because all his staff room was coming down with the flu. And for the ones who took the plague, none of them got the flu, but everyone else who wouldn't take it, oh no, I'm not taking that, they all came down with the flu. And he said, I rest my case, he says. Nothing will live with it.
What's it called again?
Anti-plague formula.
Page 32. Yeah.
Oh, it's strong. It is so strong. And you can put, as I said, I put in maybe about 2 or 3 of those whole jalapenos. They are strong. The hottest ones you can get. And it takes something to get it down. Just like oregano oil. I'll tell you a story of oregano oil, or oregano oil, however you say it. But I was recently, when I was in America, there was a man and the woman and man in the audience. And the woman put up a hand and she says, I want to just tell you something. My husband, I knew he was having, and it was hard, by the way, I'll just preface this by saying it was hard to understand her. She had a very thick accent, so I had to sort of decipher it, and we just talked about later on, I heard what she said. But she said her husband was in the middle of a heart attack. She says, I knew he was having a heart attack. And she said she talked to somebody. She said, quick, what do I do? And they said, give him some oregano oil. So how much do I give him? I don't give him a bottle full. And I said, a bottle full? I said, how big was your bottle? And she says, 1 fluid ounce. Okay, so that's only a little bottle, okay? It's not one of Ralph's bottles, which is like huge. It was a little bottle, but she gave him a whole bottle of oregano oil. And she said he had to hold it in his mouth for 30 seconds. And then she said she got it down. I don't know if he swallowed it or sipped it down with a bit of water. I've forgotten what she said. And she said he immediately came out of his heart attack. And not only that, when he went to have all his readings with all his arteries were completely clear. There was no blockage whatsoever. And he was in the audience. He was there with her. And he says, yes, that happened. But he says, I want to tell you something. Since that day, I have tried to take this oregano oil in my mouth. He says, I can't handle it. It's terrible. But she said, when she put it in my mouth, he said, I didn't taste a thing. And I've heard that before because there was a story with cayenne pepper. The same thing with the cayenne pepper. And we'll talk about that tomorrow. Because the lady with the cayenne pepper, one of the classes, because Barbara O'Neill told me there was a lady who had in her class, she said she just keeled over. She doesn't know whether she had a heart attack or a stroke. She just keeled over and her husband said, quick, she's having a turn. And Barbara says, get her some cayenne pepper. And so they got her some cayenne pepper and they put it in her mouth and she immediately came out. And I was telling this story in the class. I had probably, was at least well over 20 in this class. And a lady put her hand up and she said, excuse me, I was that lady. And so...
I was just going to make a comment on the on the oregano oil. Was that like a pure essential oil?
Yes, it was a pure essential oil.
Because I had put a bit on just to do a gargle once, and it actually burnt my lip, and I'm just amazed that you could actually do that. I would have thought you'd burn the mouth out.
I don't know. Okay, we want to try it. Who's game to try it?
I'll try it. I have to say, when I did my first brew with the oregano oil, I gave it to my sister and I said, look, here, have some. This is a new batch of organic oregano oil. And I didn't know it's the first time I'd done it. I said, so I gave her a dropper full, so I threw it in her mouth and she started hopping around the kitchen screaming. And I said, what's the matter with you? You're weak or something, you know. And then I put some in my mouth and I started hopping around. And I said to someone, I said, quick, get the olive oil. And we rinsed our mouths out with olive oil and we settled down. And then I realised that I had to dilute it. And so 100% is not good. 5-to-1 is what you buy in the shop, but I do a 3-to-1. It's nice and strong and it really works well. Yeah.
So obviously I heard theirs was diluted down a bit. Yeah. Yeah, I know Ralph's oregano oil is pretty powerful. Pretty powerful. Do you know something? These sort of talks, this sort of feedback gives you so much information that you could never get anywhere else. To hearing like little anecdotes of people who have gone through and experienced something is something invaluable because you can remember this one day. You know, heart attacks. We'll talk about heart attacks and we'll talk about cayenne pepper tomorrow. But while I thought of it, I thought, oregano oil and heart attacks, because I'd never heard of that. That was a brand new thing for me. And this woman was there. She said she brought her husband out. And he was there and he said he did. So, you know, it's truth, okay? Because they were the ones who experienced it. Yeah. And I don't think she had, either she didn't have any cayenne pepper or it didn't work or something like that. She knew about cayenne pepper, but either she didn't have it or it didn't work, but she had oregano oil. So down a bottle of it. That's why I said to her, how big was your bottle? I did qualify it. I thought, if I told this story, you know, people say, because I had visions of Ralph's bottles. Ralph's bottles are this big, you know. And I think they're not even tiny like that little one there, which is how big is that, 10 mils? 15 mils. Well, I don't know how much. I think an ounce is about 10 mils, is it? Yeah, so it's about just a bit over a teaspoon, bit over 2 teaspoons. Yeah, pardon? 5 mils, yeah, so. Well, obviously it went down, and he's quite normal at this stage, you know, and he's getting around, and he's quite okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll leave it for a while. I think we'll have a bit of a break now. You can have a little break. Pastor Sehm should be here one pretty soon, hopefully. Any more questions before we finish? Sunspots. Age spots or sunspots. Age spots are really good to rub with castor oil, but you've got to be persistent. There's 2 sorts of castor oil. Castor oil is just your normal castor oil, but there's something called black Jamaican castor oil, which is extra good for skin. Extra good. So I've got the black Jamaican castor oil, which is even stronger than your normal stuff. I don't know if it's stronger, but it's very good for skin. You can get it online. Mostly all of these things you have to go online to get now. There may be an odd few shops have it, but I went online to some place and I thought, I think I got a good deal. But one class I was at, one lady got it on the phone then and there, and she said, she found it somewhere else, which is a lot cheaper. So you just got to just look for the best deal you can get, and so be it. What happens if you pay a little bit more for one place? No, not really. But I tell you what, with anything to do with the thyroid, underactive thyroid, you need to do Kaye poultices. Overactive thyroid, you put ice on the thyroid, and that's ice. You do ice compresses. So forces it, slows the whole area down. Ice, just rub some ice over the area or put an ice cloth or something like that. I would do it maybe 5 times a day, often as you can remember it. It's all right to know these things, but I tell you what, the hardest thing is to implement them. You'll implement them once and then you forget. You forget to do them all the time. Although that's me anyhow, I don't know. Maybe it's like you can't teach an old dog new tricks, isn't it? Cayenne pepper, I'd do a poultice. Yeah, cayenne pepper poultice over the thyroid area.
So with a poultice, you would just do it with a bit of water, make it up in a bit of water?
No, with a cayenne pepper poultice, if I'm doing cayenne pepper poultice over the... I'll repeat the question, Jess. Okay, we were just asked, how do you make a cayenne pepper poultice over the thyroid? I will cover this tomorrow, but I'll just touch on it. You make a tiny little bit of... 2 ways you can do a cayenne poultice. You coat a little bit of cloth or paper towel or whatever with a bit of olive oil or castor oil or whatever and sprinkle cayenne over it. Or you mix cayenne flour. I'm talking about just normal flour and water. I used one day, I was doing cayenne flour and water, and I did not have any normal flour in the house because I don't use normal flour. So I decided to use tapioca flour, and I can tell you what, it came out and set like plaster of Paris. So you don't use tapioca flour in poultices, I've learned. Yeah, you learn the hard way, don't you? Yeah, just hold on.
If you're doing a cayenne pepper poultice for your underactive thyroid, should you stop your medication while you're doing it?
I don't know. I don't know. I really can't tell you.
It might react or counter-react.
I don't know. you just got to play it by ear. I know that you've got to be careful when you're taking charcoal with medication, not to take it near. My take-home statement to things like that, if you're on any medication or if you're treating someone, you've got to check it out for yourself. I don't know all the answers. I have no idea what medication you're taking, number one, and what it's got to do. But look, I don't know. And often, I know people are often on medications and they don't really want to let their doctors know exactly what they're doing naturally. You just got to go with it.
I mean your actual thyroxine, thyroid
I don't
medication.
really know.
You don't?
I can't tell you. If anyone else knew, they're welcome to say, but I don't know. Cayenne doesn't need to be with any other. It doesn't. No, cayenne doesn't. Well, I didn't think it did, but charcoal does. Charcoal does. You've got to be careful when you're taking charcoal because it will. One lady was on thyroid medication and she just didn't realise it, and it just completely absorbed her thyroid medication when she was on charcoal. I said, no, you've got to be careful. Yes, just hold on. He's young, we'll wear him out, eh?
I'd just like to give a testimony on my thyroid issue. When I met Kaye 12 months ago, I had a lot of thyroid issues, overactive thyroid. I've done a lot in the last 12 months' time. I had highly suspicious nodules as well as hyperthyroidism. I did a lot of detoxing, a lot of parasite cleansers with ivermectin and febendazine. I got anointed. I had a tooth removed, and now I have no issues whatsoever, and my levels are normal. I've never been on thyroid medication, and my health is very much a lot better. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. See, you need to do that. You see, it's not a one. What I consider, these poultices are like a first aid treatment. Often you've got to go to the root of it because you've got to find out what's causing that. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to keep putting a Band-Aid on it. You've got to find out what's causing that sore or that injury. So you've got to go down to the root of it and you've got to find out what's causing it. Yeah. Okay, so look, I think we'll have a break now and you can have a little bit of a break. Sehm should be here. Hopefully he's here soon. He was supposed to be here before this. He was driving, yeah, so he'll be here soon. Yeah. Okay, then thank you. And we'll have a break and we'll wait. I'll clean up here and... okay.